Courtship versus dating. What is all considered in dating? What's all considered in courtship? Difference and the same, one and the same. How do we all determine that? And today's video is the video for you because we're going to spend some time reacting to a TikTok that kind of goes into some explanation of what the difference is between courtship and dating and how you can apply this as you are navigating your dating scenes or courting scenes as a believer.
Tell him I got the juice.
Who you choose to be your life partner is a big reflection of your wisdom.
Mm.
In our society today, you'll find many people find themselves exiting relationships deeply scarred, emotionally traumatized, dealing with trust issues, and having an overwhelming sense of despair when it comes to finding love.
True.
If you find yourself always ignoring red flags or experiencing consistent disappointment when it comes to your romance life, I will strongly suggest here you stop dating people and start courting them instead. The reason why I say this here is because in the realm of dating, it usually involves a degree of confusion and uncertainty, whereas in courtship, there's always clarity and a clear sense of direction of where the relationship is going. Let me explain.
Okay. So he's about to explain, so I'm not going to take it from him. Let's just kind of get caught up here. So many people are hurt. So many people are getting damaged and traumatized, dating in a manner that mirrors and reflects the world. So first we have to get to a place of understanding, well, what is the version of dating that the world or culture carries? And as he kind of hinted to and alluded to, it seems as if it's just a lot of uncertainty. You are confused. You kind of don't know where things are, where things stand. Not to mention, from my perspective, I'm saying this, not him, that there's also a perspective of, hey, we just want to actually conclude everything by engaging in intimacy, physical intimacy, and we're going to use that to determine if this is something that we want to continue in versus, right, getting to understand someone and actually going through the process. Okay, cool. So there's some differences between a worldly reflection of dating and a kingdom-minded reflection of dating. And he simply says that this kingdom-minded is actually more so of a courtship. Now, I'm not saying he said kingdom-minded. I'm implying kingdom-minded, but he's saying court people instead of dating people. So we're going to kind of look at that. Now, I'm going to come back around with some thoughts in the end on a process that I think is even more necessary prior to re-engaging into this scene and moving about it in a different perspective, like he's suggesting.
Dating in many cases lacks a predefined purpose. It's not really intentional. Some people, yeah, they enter dating or dating somebody with the clear goal of finding a lifetime partner, whereas somebody else's goal might just be to just have some casual enjoyment. We also have to acknowledge that in the time we live in now, dating involves physical intimacy, sex, okay? And for me, that can open up a whole door of issues between you and...
Yes, sir. He talking, right? So he's kind of considering this and connecting this to dating. You know, worldly dating, what does that look like? Cultural, it's uncertainty. You could be coming in with intentions of commitment long term. Somebody else is coming in, hey, I just want to have fun and be casual. And now bringing up physical intimacy.
And somebody. And let's be real, some people just use dating as a remedy to just cure their loneliness. But in courtship, which I strongly suggest, clarity and intention are constant companions. Generally, both parties approach the relationship with the aim of marriage. It might not mean an instant commitment to one another because at the end of the day, you still need to get to know each other, but the desire for marriage is mutual. Look, this dating that people do nowadays is just confusion of the highest order. One person might come to you asking you, what are we? Are we exclusive? Are you seeing somebody else? That's just confusion. In courtship, you don't deal with that kind of nonsense. There's nothing like that. You won't go and kiss your babe now and then she'll come to you a couple of days later and say, that kiss that you kissed me the other day, what does it mean? You don't deal with stuff like that. Or if you introduce your partner to your parents or your family, or if she introduces you to her family, there's no confusion or it's not weird or awkward because both of you understand what you're doing with each other. There is intention, there's purpose there. In courtship, you're always having constant conversations about the trajectory of your relationship. Do you understand? You need to know where you're heading, where you're going. Conventionally, you're not having sex, okay? And this is a good thing for the male and the female, okay? Because in the event that the relationship doesn't work out, at least both of you haven't damaged each other or emotionally traumatized each other for your future relationship. And that's what's happening nowadays. People have entered relationships, it's not worked out, they're giving up. Oh, there's nobody good anymore. There's good people out there. You just need to find them.
Bada boom. I like what he's saying. I get it. I like where he's going. There's just a certain level of intention, perspective, direction. Okay, we don't just have the intention of doing the right things, but we actually therefore put our foot forward to do the right thing. So it's not just intention, but it's also direction. So we're preserving our bodies, we're preserving each other. We have similar visions in mind, romantically or relationally. Hey, we both know we want marriage, so we both understand what we're in this space for. You're getting to know them. It's not an instant, you know, commitment to marriage the moment you meet, or the moment that you begin to kind of build some things together. You're still learning and filling things out, but you're going through that process, and it's not blind. Okay, that's kind of his bigger picture. It's not blind, it's not time wasted, it's not trying to figure out, hey, what is this and what does this mean, and all these kinds of things. So it's, we're kind of building some momentum, on what he's breaking down here on the difference between courtship and dating.
And I always say this world is tough already. Would you not like to traverse this world, with a companion, a ride or die, somebody who's not an idiot? Come on, we have to start treating ourselves like royalty. Stop dating these riffraffs, man. Stop dating them. Court them instead, because at least the one that will agree to court you, and
Hey, a quick question. I'm sorry. Y'all know what a riffraff is, bro? I'm not old, am I? I don't know what a riffraff is. I mean, he's definitely from a different space. I think the location here is United Kingdom, so of course I wouldn't know the slang, but I might, depending on what it is, I might start using it.
at least that person has to be serious to some degree. And you know what? Yeah, some of you might say, I don't want to court. That's fine. You don't need to do whatever you want. But one question that I'll ask you to ask yourself here is, what's the point of you entering something with somebody, whether you want to call it I'm seeing someone or whatever? What's the point of you entering something with somebody with no end goal?
Man, let me stop. I've been saying this for a minute now, but nevertheless,
thinking one thing, the other person is thinking something else. You don't know if tomorrow that person's just gonna bug out and just ruin your life. You don't know. If you consider yourself a serious person in all areas of life, but when it comes to the romance, it's not really working out, I would strongly suggest you court instead. If you like this content, follow for more.
All right. So I like it. I appreciate that a lot. So look, so how he's described dating and courtship is two different things. So dating, from his perspective, is solely worldly. Sounds like, okay? This is just kind of how I heard what he shared. You go out, you meet somebody, everybody's uncertain, you don't know what you're doing. You don't have a direct goal in mind, an intentional perspective in mind. Whereas courtship, there is purpose, there is intent, there is direction. Okay. We both know what we want, we both know where we're going, and we're not here to play games. Okay. We're getting straight to the point. We understand each other. We're looking to understand one another. We're going through a process of growing and understanding one another, marriage being the end goal. Okay. Cool. This is kind of what I'll share to this, because I don't disagree. I love a lot of what he said, everything really of what he said. However, I'm not so sure dating and courtship are two complete different entities that is to be separated, because I think even in the courtship perspective, you're dating, you're still dating this person, okay, because you have interests in taking things to a romantic space. Courtship, I believe, is just the manner in which you ought to operate in your dating. So I'm not necessarily saying that courtship and dating are two different things. I don't necessarily know if I'm willing to go that far. Your intentions and directions, however, are just entirely different than how the world would move about dating. So I think courtship is the difference between a Christian perspective of dating and a worldly perspective of dating. As a believer, as somebody who is living their life for Jesus, I am not interested in moving in spaces that are filled with unclarity, uncertainty, and ill will or unintentional directions. I want to be as clear about where I'm going, what I'm looking for, and why I believe I can find it here. We move with intention and direction with the common goal in mind of marriage. We are intentional with our conversations, respected and respective of one another's boundaries, understanding what's at stake by crossing such boundaries, biblically speaking. Of course, that means no physical intimacy. Of course, that means not engaging in those kinds of things and not even putting ourselves in positions to where that is something that can happen. We want to get to know somebody. We want to commit to getting to know somebody, learning them, and perhaps making the decision ultimately that they are the one that we want to settle down and spend the rest of our lives with. You're still dating, you're just dating differently. Okay. Courtship is just dating differently. It's not an entire different entity from dating, as I've received and perceived it from a lot of these conversations. It is simply a different way of dating. And it's a way in which you're moving intentionally with every individual you come in contact with, explaining what you're looking for, right? Explaining where you're going, understanding what you want, where you're going, having a foundation that is rooted in your value system, having a relationship with your creator, calling, and capacity, and being willing to find somebody who meshes in with that, moving intently with every step along the way. No one's lost. No one's confused. No one's left in the dark. We're not ghosting people. We're not playing games. We're not in one day and out the other. We are committed to the space of moving intentionally. That is courtship. And courtship is dating differently. Prior to getting to courtship, you're going to have to step out here and meet people. That has to be a part of getting to a place of courtship. So don't interpret this message, at least what I'm sharing, to be, oh, okay, so every one person, like I gotta go at this, every person I meet, I gotta be willing to court in order to, like, no, I think that's a place that you reach. That's the difference between worldly dating and dating from a kingdom perspective. Of course, we already know what we're looking for, and we're trying to find who matches that. So in the process of trying to find who matches that, I gotta tell you, you're probably going to run into people who don't. You're probably going to run into people who aren't thinking along the same lines. This is why it's important in your process of getting to know somebody. We don't just jump to do everything. We spend time asking questions. What are you looking for? Why are you on this app? What are your intentions? What is the end game and end goal for you? Those kinds of questions, along with so many others, are important in the process of trying to find out, okay, is this somebody that I want to walk into a courting process with, right? And we determine that through interview, meeting up, asking questions, right? Based off of that meetup. Okay, cool. I like how this is going. Let's continue. Let's see what this looks like. Right. Of course, again, as we've mentioned, we've talked about here on this channel, we want to pray about these things. We want to take this to God. We want to be in the presence of God prior to even getting into a space where we're courting and we're seeing people, we're meeting people. Like we want to talk to God and depend on God even in those spaces. Hey, God, is this like even a season for me to date? Is this even a season for me to engage in this and start moving in that way, trusting that God is Lord and good, right? Like his decisions are dope for us, and we want to trust that everything he has set out for us, everything that he desires for us, is for our own good. Keep in mind that to get to this space of courtship, one, you ought to already know what you want, what you're looking for, and have your intentions, direction, purpose in mind prior to engaging in the dating apps and meeting people. Like, you are already moving in that. Okay. We're not waiting to find somebody to then start moving in that. We're already moving in that. Right. We care about our character and integrity and preserving our bodies and preserving the bodies of people that we meet, honoring them and God. Right. We have that in mind. We already are locked in there. Okay, cool. And understand that prior to engaging in the different dating style, that being courtship, I'm going to go through a process of meeting people. Okay. Does this even make sense for us to continue investing into at greater levels? Right. And we want to make room for that. So don't think that by you interviewing or meeting multiple people trying to figure this out, that you are no longer operating in a courtship process. You're actually looking to get to that process by learning people, meeting people, and then saying, hey, okay, I made my decision. I've met somebody. This makes sense. I like how this is going. So therefore, I'm going to be decisive. I've made my decision. I want to commit to knowing this person, and I want to commit to getting to understand this person instead of continuously going from one date to another for a cycle of time and never making a commitment. Okay. Or dragging something out long enough to where then you learn you don't want to make a commitment after a certain period of time. You should already be understanding of what you're looking for, what you're wanting. And of course, bringing all these things to prayer and God and counsel, getting wise counsel, all these things in your process of relationships. Your relationships are extremely important, and we ought to carry them as such. We ought to operate and navigate in them as such, not treating them as ice cream samples. We want to take this as serious as we did when we had to get our driver's license. There was a whole process we endured and had to go through. There are so many other things that we put a lot of time and effort into thinking, calibrating, making wise decisions. Put that here in your relationships as well. And I do believe, as this gentleman suggested, that your relationships are going to be for the better all the way around. Your romance, your romantic experience is going to be for the better forever. And you're going to weed out a lot of people who aren't making sense for where you're going. And you're no longer going to find yourself offended when that person doesn't match and align, because it doesn't make sense for me to abandon where God is calling me to for the sake of making you comfortable and trying to fit where you're going, because we actually don't win there, we lose. And also, along with that, keep in mind that it's about how you engage in that process leading up to courtship, right? That the nuances of those is what determines whether or not the actions, the process is unbiblical or biblical, right? We aren't looking to engage in premarital physical intimacy as a way of trying to determine if this is somebody we want to take on a courtship, and we want to engage in that process. It is important that we go about that process respectfully, keeping our integrity, character, and value system intact, our boundaries intact, and that we understand that in every individual and situation that we encounter, we are ambassadors to Christ. And so we understand that we are reflecting his love, reflecting his compassion, reflecting his kingdom everywhere we go. So we don't want to engage in worldly activity for the sake of trying to figure out, hey, is this somebody I want to court? No, that we want to be attentive to those processes as well. If you are somebody who is transitioning out of maybe that phase or that space, that season, that area of life where you were not really moving with intentionality, direction, you were kind of just chilling, being playful, casually dating, and in the process, as you're in this space, you're learning that, man, I got some things I need to unwire, and I got some pains that I need to deal with. My advice to you is, prior to engaging and trying to flip the switch, hey, I'm going to court from now on. Okay. Again, it's just a different way of dating. You're still dating, just differently now. What I would suggest is to get healed in your single season. Don't flip that switch and try to find somebody to heal with. I would encourage you to get healing in your singleness now to prepare for the ultimate relationship that you're looking to build. Your singleness is important. Your single season is not something to just skip over, and you want to come into that courtship space healed and complete, not needing that other person to complete you. And also keep in mind as well, in this courtship space, that this is a place where we are praying, where we are coming to God about this individual. We are seeking counsel about this potential relationship, and we are also not interested in forcing that person to see things the way we do. I want you to be willing to be who you are, be loving, be genuine, be compassionate, not because of what you think you're going to get out of the end game, but because that is just simply who Christ is calling you to be, up to the standard that he has called us to with his love. Okay. One thing that may not be talked about a lot in courtship is the fact that you could very well enter that process and you learn something about them, or they learn something about you. And ultimately, we both have an opportunity to make the decision if this is something we still want to move forward with. And a lot of times we can look really bad when we say all of these things with the goal in mind of reaching marriage or reaching a long-term romantic relationship. And then when that doesn't happen, we go sour, and they're no longer everything we said about them. They're no longer awesome and loving and all this kind of stuff. We kind of just turn into that one guy or that one person that then villainized and demonized the entire population of women because one woman rejected him. And instead of him continuing to think that she was cute and beautiful when he first catcalled her, when she rejected him, now all of a sudden she's ugly and unbearable and don't nobody want you no way. We don't want to move in that way. And set your temperature to love at the standard that Christ is calling us to love. And whether or not it reaches to that place, don't allow that to define everything you do. Well, if it's not going to marriage, then I could care less, and I'm not really interested in being kind, loving, compassionate. I'm not interested in being patient. I'm not interested because then everything you're doing is illegitimate. See, this is also a part of courtship. Understanding that it's not demanded of both people to make it to a certain place. And we are all, both of us, making the decision in the process of courtship, looking to understand if this is somebody we want to commit to. And even if it isn't a conclusion we come to where we say, hey, we want to commit to one another for life, saying yes to you and no to everybody else. That is okay. And I want you to get to the place of being able to say, that is okay. I'm not saying this to prevent you from disappointment, but I'm saying this for you to monitor your expectations and be aware and moving and navigating in wisdom to be able to see where this person is and not where you hope them to be, and being able to move from the information given. Because if you set your expectations there and you don't get there, it's very possible that you can turn very sour and allow that to change who you are. And as believers, we don't want to find ourselves in that space. As people who are engaging in this dating and dating differently through courtship, we don't want to find ourselves in that space. Allow Christ to set your temperature, be patient, and be willing to get to know someone. Enjoy that process. Don't rush. I don't think you gain anything from rushing. You just get to something underdeveloped. And trust me when I tell you, I'm still learning this myself, growing in this myself. But because I'm understanding it more and more in other areas of my life, I think it's definitely okay to share. Be in that process and trust God for the relationship and connection that you're building. And if this person is somebody that can make room for you and it makes sense for where you're going and where God is taking you on assignment and on your calling and why you're here, trust God for that. And if not, trust God for that as well. Trust God. And if this person is supposed to be in your life, they can't leave it. And if they aren't supposed to be in your life, they can't stay in it. So I appreciate you guys so much for tuning into this video. If you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe, like this video, share this with a friend who also may want to know potentially the difference or explanation behind dating and courtship and how they should operate in their own dating spaces. All right. So I appreciate you guys so much. And until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy, my friend. Hey, peace.